Welcome to the UST Education recorded webinar series. This session is powered by US Transactions. UST is a boutique payment processing firm providing you with personalized service. We offer agnostic, best fit technology solutions for associations, nonprofits, and enterprise clients.
Fantastic. Well, welcome everybody. I appreciate you taking time to join us for the next hour for association lessons from 50 seasons of Survivor. It's great to see so many familiar names joining today and new faces as well. So glad to meet you. I told Riley before this got started, I didn't realize this had happened. I wasn't trying to do this, but I presented with UST Ed exactly 1 year ago today. So on February 4th, 25, I presented. Riley, you're gonna have to look it up and see if I'm the only one to ever do something like that. So a little fun fact for the day there. As we go through this, really, it's not like I'm an expert on Survivor, but I am a fan. I've watched numerous seasons, and then just over the past couple of weeks, I've read a lot. I've watched a number of videos. It's amazing what's out there about Survivor, and particularly in light of different angles on it and different lessons that are out there and that sort of thing. So I want to take you through some of that. I do want your input. I'll have certain times when I'll ask questions. Love to see it in the chat from you. And then also, if there are times where you have something else to add and it's not a time where I'm asking a question, feel free to chime in as well and add that to the chat. So let's get rolling here. All right, so I think most of you know, I'm assuming most of you are Survivor fans. For those of you that are not, Survivor's been around since the year 2000, so 26 years. Season 50 actually launches in about 3 weeks. And season 50 is going to be one that brings back a lot of previous players throughout the years since the very beginning. And the theme for Survivor is to outwit, outplay, outlast. And so basically using your smarts, using your social game, you're using your athletic ability on challenges, and you're trying to be the one who's not voted out in a given round and make it all the way to the end. We'll talk a little bit more about some of those elements as we go through. So the first thing that happens on Survivor is that, at least nowadays, they all arrive on the beach. And this beach moment is, it must be an amazing feeling. That's the main thing I can think about. But particularly nowadays, when so many people, particularly when the show's been around as long as it has, they've grown up as fans of the show, or they watched it for 10 or more years, or whatever it is. But a lot of them, this is what they've known since they were children, and now they're getting to come on. So it's a big thrill to see the location. It's a big thrill to see Jeff Probst. And there's a few things I want to point out here. One is, in this image, they're showing that they're already divided into 3 tribes. And the typical Survivor season is 18 competitors divided into 3 tribes. And those are 6 on each tribe. They've been given a color. So that theme for their team is sort of predetermined. And then they have a wardrobe that to some extent goes with that. But the one thing I want you to think about with this image as well is the fact that none of these people know each other at this point. None of them has a reputation for anything. None of them are coming into this as an expert in any way. Now, again, some of them come in as highly successful business people, or maybe they're doctors, or maybe they've even had actors or professional athletes on here. But generally speaking, nobody is known to anyone else. And so you're starting fresh and you're trying to make this impression. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that's broken down and all that sort of thing. But I think the thing I want you to think about right away is, like, imagine these are new members of your associations, first time attendees. Everything is a blank slate. And what is it that you're trying to impress on them from the word go? What is it that you're trying to have them walk away from that experience with? And specifically to be so excited about it that they go back and tell their friends and their family and their peers and their colleagues, so that they, that builds a dynamic or builds some interest elsewhere in terms of them perhaps joining what you are offering in the future. So they get there and they're in these three tribes. They are given these buffs. And again, for those of you that are familiar with the show, these buffs, they're like a cloth, like a bandana. A lot of people wear them in their hair, around their head, maybe on their arm. Um, but it's an identity. It is who they're aligned with very early on in this game. So as I mentioned, typically you have six people on your tribe and you're known by that blue color, that yellow color, that red color, whatever it is. And it's amazing to me how strong those tribal alliances or alignment are as they go through the game. So even as they get past that tribal phase, which usually is around the time they go from 18, they eliminate one person each round till they get to about 11. That's typically when they're not going to be on those tribes anymore. But there's still a sense at that point that they've got alliances and friendships and that sort of thing, and that's going to carry some weight as they go into that second phase of the individual game. But I also show this as a way to say, like, what are you doing to create an identity, an alliance for your members, your attendees, your uh, those who are trying to get a credential through you, whatever it might be. There could be ways where you give them a cohort, you give them some sense of identity through a peer group, through an ambassador alliance, or through mentorships and mentees, whatever it is. Give them that immediate connection because that's going to have power throughout, we'll call it the game, throughout their time in their career, their position with your association, and whatever that means for them in that context. But just having a few people, and again, they don't know each other, they don't have any particular connections, they don't have anything in common as far as they know initially, but they build those. And I would contend that most people could do that with any group of six or eight or 10 people within an association. You already have an interest or an industry or a profession in common, and you want to give more opportunities for that to build. So putting people in tribes could give them that opportunity. Now, throughout the years, I found this graphic. There's a video on YouTube that goes through every tribal name that's been issued and what those names mean, right? And it's everything from, alligator to ocean to whatever it might be. And again, I feel like this is part of the magic or the appeal of Survivor, both in terms of being a player and also in terms of being a fan, is these kinds of unique or sometimes even silly kinds of things that you're exposed to, but it builds something. It builds some sense of bonding for those players. Even when viewers are maybe talking to family or friends about the show, they might reference one of the tribes and call them by name. I don't necessarily always remember the tribe names. Usually it's just like, oh, yellow or green, or I think red's going to lose this challenge, whatever it is. But but think about that in the context of associations and what that means, whether we're talking about young professionals, emerging leaders, um, whatever, your board, your membership committee, whatever it is, somehow infusing that with something that binds them or bonds them together, both in terms of what I mentioned with the buffs. It could be other clothing items, it could be other, a pen or something that they recognize each of the other from. It could be a certain lanyard, but it could be a more creative name, a more memorable name, something that lets people know they're on the inside of this experience and that experience is limited to maybe it's 10 people, 20 people, it could be 100 people. It doesn't really matter in that sense, but how are they tied together through this experience of being a member or conference attendee or someone who's going through a credentialing program or certification program, whatever it might be. Okay. Um, I think one of the things that's interesting too, when you do what I've just gone through and you look for a lot of things online related to Survivor, is how much is put out by CBS, how much is put out by the Survivor show itself, the producers, but how much of it's done by the fans as well. And I love these kinds of graphics, right? Where, essentially with this one, you got the player's name, their age, where they're from, what their profession is, whatever it is, right? And And immediately you've got a connection with them. And again, I don't know about you, but I like to go on there and say, oh, well, that person lives within 50 miles of me, or I grew up in that area, or, I went to college there, or whatever. Like they're closer to my age, right? Like it's like some reason to cheer for them or feel like you have a connection with them. And again, my positioning here would be, I think associations have a great opportunity to do something like this. And again, I'm not talking about recreating Survivor, but I am talking about bringing a spotlight to your members, to your attendees, to those who've, gotten a promotion recently or reached a certain mark in their career, whatever it is, and to bring that attention to them and do it in ways that elevate their voice. I talked about earlier about the fact that the the individual competitors are unknown to each other. The other thing to remember is they're unknown to us. They're unknown to us as the viewers until we start watching those episodes. And as we watch those episodes, then we begin to understand their personality, maybe their background, their motivation, whatever it is. But slowly over the course of time, they become known to us. And I would again venture to say that in your association membership, you could select 10 or 20 or 100 to highlight within a conference, within a membership, in a newsletter or in a journal, whatever it might be, that you can bring attention to them. They might be known in certain circles, but what can you do to advance their visibility, advance their career, give them more opportunities to be seen and to be heard? And again, this is a great way to do it. So this next one's just another example of the same kind of thing. Somebody had put this together for Survivor 44. You've got the tribe names on this one. I think the one difference with this one as well is that it's got not just where they live, but where they're from originally. So hometown versus residence. Again, I don't know about you, but that gives me a sense for like, oh, they've lived in more than one place, or, oh, they live near where they grew up, or they're from the same hometown my wife is from, right? Like all of those kinds of things provide a sense of connection. That connection can be within the game, but that connection is probably more pronounced with us as fans as we look at who's coming onto a season or often in a season. I'll go back and look at some of this information again to remind myself of some of these details. Or if I'm watching a season in the past, so everything's happened already, I might not look at these kinds of things until the end of watching the season because I'm a little nervous about running across something that reveals the winner. I don't want to find that out too early. But again, position your members, attendees, etc., in this kind of way. I wanted to show you this just because it shows the passion that some fans have for this. So I found this, I think this is on Reddit. All tribes documented, including the colors in hexadecimal format and their namesakes, right? So this is from 8 years ago, so this is not current, but you can see the colors for each tribe, the tribe name, like I said, the meaning of what that name is. You've got ones like down there. The Swahili for fire and water, all these kinds of things. It just kind of gives you a sense for what's happening here. But mostly I wanted to point this out. These are fans, right? And I will add this. I've been in the association space for over 20 years, and I consider myself something of an association nerd, association fan. I love knowing things about associations. You could say the name of an association, and generally speaking, I can tell you someone who works there, someone who used to work there, some connection to that association. I might know where the headquarters are, but maybe tapping into your members who maybe they themselves are not looking for visibility in that same sense. Like we talked about elevating them and elevating their visibility and their voice and advancing their career, but maybe they kind of geek out on some aspect of what your association represents and what you do. And so maybe giving them a platform to say, look, I noticed all these things. And has anybody really talked about this, right? Like even like I just said when I introduced myself at the beginning, um, I've presented on UST Ed 2 years in a row on the same exact date, right? Like, what are the odds of that? Well, I think we know what the odds of that are, but um, it's still kind of an interesting little thing. And so I think there are people out there like me who would want to know, more facts, more details, more behind the scenes. And I think you can give people a glimpse with this. And the other part of this is not everything that happens has to be produced by the association, nor does everything have to be controlled by the association. We'll talk about that a little bit more as well, but give people an opportunity to do some of these things, then spotlight it and see where it goes. There's probably lots of examples I could give of this, but I think it's an interesting little positioning there with giving your fans, your members, the opportunity to contribute and participate. So I show this again as a way to just introduce the fact that when a new season starts, there's generally a lot of promotion around it. They put out these kinds of images where, at least in this case, everybody's clean and fresh faced and dressed nicely. They're not dirty yet, right? But it gives you a sense like, oh, they're like me in some ways, right? Like these are people that just were doing what I'm doing, like a daily job and things in the community and watching TV and watching Survivor, and now here they are on this show. Um, and obviously some of them have greater skills or strengths or backgrounds that might prepare them for this kinds of experience. But I think the point is like, and not everybody's from the United States, but it's a cross section of the country or cross section internationally even of what's happening there. And so I love seeing these kinds of images of, what that season is going to present and who are these people. And again, that goes back to the background information that we might get on each one in terms of their hometown, their job, their age, that sort of thing. Okay. So again, particularly with this season 50, you could see some of the competitors that are going to be on this next season. For those of you that have been watching regularly, you know that they announced season 50 and the format, I don't know, several months ago, I guess before season 49. But we also knew that season 49 was going to have at least a couple of competitors from that season on season 50. So even before that season happened, we knew a couple of them would be coming back. But again, this is just another great example of like, they're not showing everybody. And by the way, season 50 has 24 participants, so larger than normal. But they're highlighting a few of them. Some of these are familiar for various reasons. I'm not going to go into all of them. I don't even necessarily know all of them, but for various reasons, they're on here and they're representing this cross section, if you will, right? Like they want to show all kinds of people, right? Different races, different ages, different genders, right? Like whatever it might be. And for the record, the most famous one on here is probably Mike White, the second one from the left, producer or director of White Lotus. He was already well known before he went on his original season of Survivor. They've brought it back for season 50. And for the record, for those of you that are interested, I've been watching some of these videos too, like predictions for season 50 and who's likely to win and that sort of thing. And Mike White is one of the ones that they don't give a lot of chance to just because he's so well known. People aren't going to want him to stick around and suddenly win another $1 million when he's already fairly wealthy. Okay, so with that, we're going to take a time for a quick check-in question. So what lessons have you learned from watching Survivor? Whether you've just watched one season or 10 or 40 or more, what have you learned from it? Or if you don't watch Survivor and you're like, this is a crazy topic, I want to have a little change of pace on a Wednesday morning, maybe what stood out to you from the first part of this session in terms of lessons from 50 seasons of Survivor? And let me see if I can get my chat up so I can see what everybody's saying. So my head's off to the left, looking at a different screen right now. Oh my goodness, I love all these things. It's going so fast, but I see things about alliances and resiliency and flexibility and the importance of being collaborative and making connections and working with others, just getting along with people. This is fantastic. That's a good one, Philip. Discretion and communication. Um, I saw something about people being included, but yeah, the discretion and communication, right? Like when do you tell certain things, when you reveal, I have an idol, I have a hidden immunity idol, whatever it is, right? Like, um, again, community, working together. Um, Jordana, I like that too. Relatability of participants. So great. Again, these are all coming in so fast. I know I missed some. Matt talked about trust. That's a key one we're going to touch on later as well, Matt. Um, okay, got at least one person who hasn't watched any episodes, so Hopefully this will give some insight or maybe inspire you to watch some more. Um, Val, I like your comment too about everybody throwing everybody under the bus. Yeah, it's a little intense at times. But yeah, I think that's part of the point of this session too, is to make sure there's lessons that go beyond all of that. Amanda, great point about just observing what's happening and taking in those social cues and that sort of thing. Going back to Val's comment real quick, I'll say this, like I always find it interesting, watching a show, right? Like that. It's like I don't know how to say it exactly, but I it's fun to watch it from the comfort of my home, right? It's like I don't have to worry about being dirty, starving. Maybe I've got a snack while I'm watching it. Um, and it is interesting. They're going through a very different experience than what we're going through at home. Um, oh my goodness, Stacy, what a great challenge to try to address in terms of breaking cliques, particularly with board members. Wow, I would love to talk with you more about that. Um, yeah, okay, good, good. Okay, so thanks for everybody for weighing in. We'll go on to the next one here. So let's talk a little bit about the format here. Um, so one of the key elements of Survivor are the challenges, right? And so I've gotten a few images there. Some of these look familiar, even if you haven't seen these particular episodes, these particular seasons, this should look familiar to you. Everything from a team challenge, right? Again, that team of six, or maybe if people have been eliminated, maybe only five or four from each team are participating, and they're racing to finish an obstacle course. Generally, it ends with a puzzle, and whatever teams, the top two teams that finish are rewarded with an idol. They're not going to get voted out. Nobody on that tribe's going to get voted out at the next tribal council. And the team that loses, let's say they have six members still, one of those six is getting voted out. But the other thing is that we've got individual immunity as well. I think that's pretty much represented in the upper right-hand corner and the lower left-hand corner, where in this phase of the game, everybody's on their own. They're doing this challenge, whether it's stacking blocks or keeping a ball on a board while balancing on a board, right? Like all these things that are happening that test you in different ways, right? Dexterity, balance, strength, all those things that are happening. Um, those things are going on uh, each episode of Survivor, sometimes more than one time, depending on what they're trying to accomplish. Um, so I mentioned the immunity necklace or immunity idol. So I guess typically immunity idols are for tribes, for a group of people who have won a challenge, and it's representative of the fact that they are not going to be voted out or don't go to tribal council to be voted out in the next round. Um, these are primarily images of tribal or immunity necklaces. When you have an individual challenge, the one winner, or sometimes they have a male and a female winner, um, you have that around your neck, you're protected. You are not going out that round, that next tribal council. That is your safety buffer, if you will. Similarly, I did want to highlight this. I found this image and it's just great. I don't remember what season this is. This is fairly recent, 47 or 48, I think. But the highlight or the headline basically was talking about the fact that this one moment, was the kind of thing that really makes Survivor incredible. And you could see it on the faces of all the teammates there. I think that's Shaheen, if I'm remembering correctly, his name. And I think it just rolled down that board and into a hole or into whatever it was waiting for them to win or to get immunity at that point. But I think we're all feeling that energy, that anxiety, whatever it might be in that moment. And that's what pulls us in as viewers. So again, as association professionals, how can we create this for our members, our attendees? How can we make it so that they're waiting to see what's going to happen next? And they don't know the outcome. Nobody knows the outcome until it happens. And and maybe that's revealed in an educational session, that's revealed at a conference, that's revealed in a newsletter, right? Whatever it is, but see what you can do to build that anticipation and people being on the edge to wait to see what's next. Um, when they have these challenges, um, some of them are to get immunity. Some of them are to simply get rewards. And these rewards oftentimes are food rewards. And they talk a lot about, Jeff Probst mentions going to the sanctuary, right? Like a place where you're away from everybody else. It's just a few of you. You're getting to relax. I think in this case, maybe they're sitting on pillows. It's hard to tell, but they're getting a great meal. And sometimes that meal is based on a theme, right? Like it's spaghetti night or it's tacos or whatever it is, right? And then you get all the drinks and sides and all that kind of thing that go with it. So this is happening, but it's also a chance for those, usually in this, if it's a tribe, right, they've gotten this reward together. If it's an individual, they've usually chosen two or three other people to go with them, which builds some alliances, but it also gives them a chance to talk strategy when they get to that next phase of the game, or they get to the time where they're going to have to vote again. So again, I think in the context of associations, you want to think about how are you making these special, memorable moments where maybe just a handful, maybe 12, maybe 20 people are getting together. It feels exclusive in a sense. Maybe they've earned it for some reason, but they're getting a chance to, I think in the business world, we'd call it network, right? They're making connections. Maybe they're getting to talk about job opportunities. Maybe they're getting to talk about ways they can partner. Maybe they're getting to talk about ways they could present each other on a webinar or in a series that they're doing, right? Like, what are those things that you're bringing together people around and they're not just in a room facing forward, not participating, but they're building real relationships. So this is an example of what they call a hidden immunity idol, right? There's a few different images of this. These are generally hidden on the island, in the brush, in the trees, somewhere where it's not easy to find, but it's not impossible to find either. And so a lot of the themes around the show revolve around people trying to find time. Maybe they're going out to look for firewood or they're looking for coconuts, but at the same time, they're looking for an idol. Sometimes they know they're in trouble. Maybe they feel like they're at the bottom and they're going to be the ones that are going to be voted out next. And they don't really care who knows what, so they go out looking on their own and they'll try to find it. But sometimes they're smart about two or three going together, and so then they let somebody else know they got that idol. They're watching out for each other, particularly or possibly, not always, but again, finding ways to build that. But these idols, when it comes time for a tribal council, they can play it. And that's what you see with Jeff Probst on the right-hand side with those images. Somebody's played an idol and it's protecting them from being voted out. I guess another nuance of this is A, you can play an idol on somebody else to protect them and take the risk on yourself because maybe you're fairly confident you're not getting votes to be voted out. But also, there are fake immunity idols. People have made them, they've convinced other people they're real, and sometimes they play them in a strategic way that exposes somebody else and or themselves, and then they get voted out, or maybe they get lucky and they get past it. But I think my main thought here in terms of associations is what can you give your members that's going to give them a special advantage, right? Maybe they get to come to a dinner they wouldn't normally get to come to. Maybe there's a closed door session that they get to listen in on. Who knows? But be creative about the ways that you can bring people in, give them just that little extra, right? Like imagine it's kind of like taking a flight and you get upgraded, right? Like you get upgraded to business class, you get upgraded to first class. You're going to remember that experience, right? So whether it's at a conference or maybe it's in a membership where you're like, hey, you know what? For the next 3 months, we're going to give you all access. I know you've only signed on at this level, but we're going to give you access to everything just so you can see what it's like because we think you've got a future with this association or you've got a real career ahead of you and we want you to see what we can provide you along the way. So this is an example of tribal council. Again, I don't know which season this is from. I don't think I've watched this one, but it's always people sitting around a fire. The lit torches are in the background. Those torches, one goes to each person, and once they're voted out, they take that torch. Jeff Probst snuffs it out, tells them their tribe has voted, and it's time for them to leave the island. But this is the point at which Jeff Probst is asking lots of questions about what's been going on in camp, how people have felt about certain results of challenges or dynamics within the tribe or at camp, any of those kinds of questions. and it generally brings out certain things, maybe certain things that the tribe members or the participants don't necessarily want to reveal, but are coming out in this conversation over the course of the time. It's after this that they vote, and unless some idols or advantages come out, whoever gets the most votes is the one who's leaving. But again, I think especially in what they call the new era of Survivor, people love this experience, right? Like this is a bucket list thing for them to just be in a tribal council. They're just taking it all in. Again, they've been watching 5 or 10 or 20 or more seasons of Survivor, and this is their chance to be on it. And they're taking it all in terms of the lighting and the design and just talking to Jeff Probst. So again, what are those things that you're doing as an association that you might take for granted that are every day, every quarter, every year kinds of things, but somebody else who's new to the space, both in terms of younger or has switched professions or industries, it's their first time. What is it about that experience that can be special or memorable for them, and how can you bring them into that? So here's another time for a check-in question. What more can your association do to highlight friendly competition, to grant advantages and rewards? I just talked about that in terms of giving them a special and memorable experience, or increase recognition, right? Like give them a chance to be elevated in the sight of their peers. So again, yes, weigh in on this question. I'm monitoring just to see what's that. Donna Jean, great one in terms of getting those member and speaker spotlights, especially just in advance, right? Like the 4 weeks or 6 weeks leading up to a conference, get that out there. Yes, Stephanie, same kind of thing, right? Like using social media in that. I love this with volunteer recognition. Again, now they're going so fast I can't catch do all that. Jordana, I love that too with the conference shirt design contest. That would be a great way to bring people in, make it unique to that year or to that particular experience, and get their voices or their artistic abilities in there as well. I saw somebody saying we're doing this at conferences, but we could do more to play it up. Yes, Philip also mentioned highlighting volunteers. Let me see if I can scroll back up and catch some of these. Alyssa, that's a good one too, in terms of award of excellence that comes from the other members, right? It's not always top down. It's not always something that's produced by the association, but you're giving them a platform. Maggie's mentioning milestones. Wonderful. Love that. Again, I wish this would slow down. Okay, so I see that Dawn's talking about a virtual walk, and some of the money goes to a scholarship program, and then there's a competitive element to that. That's fantastic. Student presentations, yes, that's a great way to get them started, Peyton, on a career in the space. Fantastic, love it. You guys have got such great ideas. Thank you for weighing in. Okay, so we've got about 25 minutes left. I want to make sure we got enough time to get through these last few things. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I've read a number of things, watched videos, and I want to highlight just a couple of these things. In fact, I'm going to take a little time just to read some excerpts because I think these are so powerful. Bear with me. I'm trying to get over to this part. But yes, I want to make sure to highlight some of these leadership and survivor skills that can come out. So this one is trust is your currency, applying a lesson from Survivor to your marketing strategy. And I'm going to read a fair amount of this just because it's so powerful. It highlights Sari Fields. For those of you that don't know Sari, I won't go into her whole background, but she was, I think, in at least 4 Survivors. She's coming back for season 50. And I'll pick it up here. She's defined by her strong social relationships in the game, and she's known by many fans as one of the best players to never win. Fans' favoritism toward her and her strategic mindset explains why she's been on the show so many times. Despite knowing Sari's history on Survivor and her hero status with fans and players alike, she has made it to the final 6 players in 3 out of 4 of her Survivor games. No easy feat, a simple mistake in who you can trust can mean the end of your game. So why did players continue to trust her even after they knew her trustworthiness and loyalty were a threat? She has a strong and genuine story. So she's the one, if you haven't heard her name, you might have heard this story. She was the one who literally got off the couch and wanted to try something new, something that would be difficult. So this authentic origin story created an immediate emotional connection with viewers and fellow contestants alike. For brands, sharing your foundational story creates similar connections with your audience. People don't just buy what you sell, they buy why you sell it. Communicate the purpose behind your brand's creation. Again, associations have great origin stories, whether it's 40 years ago or 120 years ago. The problems you're solving and what makes your approach distinctive. She isn't afraid to share her personality. A brand with personality inspires meaningful connections among consumers. In Cerie's case, she strategically built relationships with the older women on her tribe, understanding her target audience and knowing what they needed in order to become not only an ally, but an advocate on her behalf. Skipping down a little bit, she listens to what others have to say. She builds her relationships in a friendly and unassuming manner, inviting others to provide their input and in turn being flexible strategically. In Survivor and other competition reality shows, this is known as having a powerful social game, describing the dynamics of building alliances and managing relationships. As a brand, how do you have a great social game? You build a reputation for reliability in products and customer service, respond to feedback and criticism constructively, and make an effort to implement it in business operations or product development. So again, I think the point there is, are you listening to your members, your attendees? Are you taking into account what they're saying? Again, not necessarily everything, but what can you build into that experience for them? I love this. Her popularity doesn't change her personality. As businesses grow, they sometimes change in a negative way that separates them from the consumer and they lose their sense of relatability. Saria has been invited to do many shows, yet she doesn't allow this to change who she is. And they mean many shows even outside of Survivor. She deliberately doesn't put herself on a pedestal. To do the same with your consumers, or in our case, members, create an online presence that's relevant to your audience. Develop a brand voice that's authentic and speaks to your audience. I mentioned this earlier, but share behind the scenes content. Chal- challenges the brand has tackled and lessons learned to humanize your brand, right? So that's just that last part is so incredibly powerful. I'm going to read that again. Share behind the scenes content, challenges the brand has tackled, and lessons learned to humanize your brand. So there's Cerie Fields. I probably could have switched to that a little bit earlier. But again, powerful social game. And I think I have one other comment about her that I love from another source. Let me see if I can find it without taking too much time. Um, yeah, this is actually from an AARP article. The quote was, who was able to overcome her physical and outdoor skills deficits with her impressive social game, analytical savvy, and keen observational talents to make it to the final three in season 16, Survivor Micronesia. So lots of lessons to be learned there about how you present yourself. I love this one. This is actually from a LinkedIn post, not a post, but a column or I forget what they call it on LinkedIn, but outwit, outplay, outlead, leadership lessons from 40 seasons of Survivor. And you can see there my comment off to the side to the author, Tony Martignetti, about this particular session I'm doing today and how I was so glad to find his article and I was going to highlight it and give him a shout out. So if you get a chance, check out Tony Martignetti. I'm not saying it right. I'm still probably not saying it right. But anyway, I'm just going to highlight just a few things here. But again, I'm going to read a bit of this just because I think it's so key. Um, let's see. Every season, you'll see a chess master emerge, someone who's 3 steps ahead, calculating every move with surgical precision. And almost every season, that person gets voted out by episode 6. They forget they're not just playing a game of strategy, they're playing with people. Being smart isn't enough. You need emotional intelligence, empathy, and a keen sense of timing. The best players don't make just the right moves. They make others feel like the moves were mutual, right? And those of you who watch Survivor, you can see that sometimes people get so stuck on a plan, so authoritative about it or authoritarian about it that they cut other people out and suddenly they're the target. Um, this goes on to say, if people don't feel seen, they won't follow. And I would position that this is true for volunteers, this is true for committee members, this is true for attendees, right? Give them an opportunity to be seen and heard. Ask yourself, am I optimizing the plan or am I connecting with the people who bring it to life? Adaptability. This is a word I think has been used in our chat today, and it's it's a word that I've read over and over again in light of Survivor research. Every season, someone shows up with a bulletproof pregame strategy, and every season the island humbles them. A tribe swap happens, and hidden idol is played. A coconut alliance implodes. The players who thrive, they listen to the present moment. And again, if there's nothing else you remember from this time, I think associations need to be better about listening to the present moment. I think sometimes we get in our heads about the machinery, about the history, about this is the way we've always done it, and we don't always evolve. They shed the script and respond to what's real, not what was planned. In our world of shifting priorities, hybrid teams, and unforeseen disruptions, rigidity is a liability. True leadership is less about having a fixed plan and more about being the person who can pivot without panic. Choose one decision this week where you abandon the script, ask what's needed now. Okay. And then the last one I want to highlight from Tony's article, visibility without ego. Survivor winners have mastered a tricky dance. Be visible enough to be trusted, but not so visible that you're seen as a threat. Too loud, you're the next target. Too quiet, you're irrelevant. The best players contribute meaningfully, build bridges, and lift others without needing to dominate. Again, that's that democratic sort of approach. Give people the power to do things, empower them to come up with ideas or contributions or ways they can frame information. They shine, but they don't cast shadows. Presence without ego builds trust. Show your value, but make space for others to rise too. Ask yourself, am I seeking to serve the room or to be the smartest person in it? I was talking with a client of mine recently who referenced a CEO of an association and said they were the smartest person in the room and they had to let you know they were the smartest person in the room. So don't be that person, right? Voice what your opinion is or your perspective, but give other people a chance to have a voice in that. Okay. So, not really a check in question, if you will, but I just highlighted the very end of each of these particular three sections that Tony had. And I just want to bring them out again. Am I optimizing the plan or am I connecting with the people who bring it to life? Am I seeking to serve the room or to be the smartest person in it? Choose one decision this week where you abandon the script, ask what's needed now. If you have thoughts on it, you can still put it in the chat, but I am going to move on in the interest of time. So I couldn't do this session without talking about sponsorships and product placements. And I had to show you this highlight. I think this is from BuzzFeed. I think that's where I got this. Ranking Survivor's most hilarious through the years. And mostly I got it because of the tagline or the secondary headline. The castaways are eating Doritos, drinking 7-Up, and shopping at Sears, right? I mean, just like sort of like you're immediately like, wow, that seems ridiculous, right? I did want to highlight some of the ones that seemed to work a little bit better, right? Reebok was a sponsor early on. I think they provided wardrobes and shoes, and it kind of made sense before they started going the way of more like team colors and themes based on your occupation or job. Home Depot, they had a year where they provided supplies with the help, for building a hut or protection, a shelter. A little bit odd to suddenly have that kind of advantage, but it made sense. And Charmin was even a sponsor, which again, they're out in the woods or on a tropical island. I'm sure that provided some comfort in the midst of being out there for weeks at a time. One of the ones that got mentioned is a pretty good one as well, kind of along the lines of the Charmin one, is herbal essences. They had a reward where people got bath and shower products from herbal essences, and what a welcome relief that must have been. In fact, I want to read you excerpt about that particular sponsorship. Um, this is from that BuzzFeed article. It says in Micronesia, the tribes competed for a spa day sponsored by Herbal Essences. And I think this is a similar type product placement to Charmin. The contestants are dirty, so any kind of shower, shampoo, soap is much appreciated. I feel gross after one day without a shower, let alone 2 weeks that involve mud wrestling competitions. So, again, very appropriate kind of thing there for Herbal Essences to be a part of. I did love the Outback one. This is one of the ones that actually kind of fits in a certain way. Again, that same author from BuzzFeed basically says the robust menu at Outback seems like something that would actually give the castaways sustenance, right? Part of his challenge with some of these other ones were like chips and sodas and different things like that weren't really actually helping them in the competition. And he goes on to say, if I had eaten nothing but rice, coconut, and rat for 3 weeks, then a steak, a baked potato, and a bloomin' onion would be incredibly nourishing and filling. So not necessarily survival related, but it makes sense nonetheless. So anyway, a quick break from the rigors and the difficulties of living off grid with an outback experience. The, the one that he highlighted as the worst product placement in the history of Survivor was a showing of the movie Jack and Jill, which is an Adam Sandler film. He says basically it has nothing to do with Survivor. It seemed like an odd thing. It's not survival related. It's not set on an island. It doesn't feature a past contestant. And he asked the question, who greenlit this idea and then coerced the Survivor contestants to give such glowing reviews of the film? So I say all that to say, think about your sponsors and think about what makes sense. So here is a check-in question. What more could your sponsors, I'm sorry, what more could your association do with sponsorships? Which potential sponsors most closely align with the association? So think a little bit outside the box, right? Don't think about your typical exhibitors, sponsors, anybody who's doing something for your event, for your dinner. But where are the places you could turn where maybe you get a new sponsor and it makes total sense, but you've never had them be a part of it before? Or the sponsors you have already, how could you better position them with a mention? Maybe not just a logo on a screen, maybe not just a sign that guides them to the exhibit hall, whatever it is. Let's see what you got here in the chat. Um, so again, let's see. Donna Jean, yes. I think that's a real trend in sponsorships, right? Is making sure you're not just pulling from a sponsorship menu, but you're actually asking them what's going to work well for them. So thank you for that. Let's see here. Yes, collaboration with them makes a lot of sense. Um, Yeah, Stephanie's got a good point about reinventing the wheel, giving them new sponsorship opportunities, not just the same thing that you keep recycling. And I will interject that here. I think one of the great things about Survivor is there's always a sense of familiarity with everything they do. Even when there's a twist or a turn you've never seen before, a lot of times you feel like, oh, that works, that fits with what I know of Survivor. Um, Jordana mentions anything that may be location specific. So yeah, that's great to think about whether your conference is in Indianapolis or it's in Houston or it's in Denver, wherever it is. Think about what's going to make sense in that. Um, yes, being clear with them and asking them what it is that they want. Let's see, what else have I missed here? Um, yes, looking for sponsors who closely align with what our members do, not just what the association needs. Uh, thank you for that, Catherine. Yeah, Teresa's got a good idea about upgrading advertisers to sponsors, right? Like, what if you just did that for two each year? Like, hey, you've been randomly selected. I mean, man, I think that would create some buzz and create some interest in your other events. Um, love this. Thank you, everybody. Um, oh, wow. That's interesting, Philip. Like, basically, a sponsorship program that's new and you're communicating these benefits, and this hasn't been something you've even tackled before. Okay. Got just about 5 to 10 minutes left, which is going to work out perfectly. So I did want to highlight this. So Survivor 50, like I said, comes out in I think it's 3 weeks from tomorrow or from today. It's certainly one to tune in to, and you can kind of catch up on what's happened in the past. But Jeff made this announcement about this being in the hands of the fans. And he had fans vote on a lot of elements. I had a little video for you, but I couldn't get it to work in time for this presentation. But where he talks about his excitement for letting the fans make certain choices about what would be in Survivor 50. And so it's, everything here you could see, like, I think this is the online image of one of the places to vote. And they say this is your chance to leave your mark on the game by casting a vote in each of our first four categories. And this is highlighting tribe colors, so the color of those buffs and what their shirts and pants might look like. The other ones, at least a couple other ones that he mentioned in this video that I was going to play, is some seasons have had tribes start out with rice, some have had them start out with nothing. And so he wanted the fans to vote on whether it was rice or no rice. And nobody's going to know, including the participants, until they get there. So they're not going to know these twists. The other thing that Jeff Probst said that's quite controversial in terms of the way fans voice their opinions is, for those of you who don't know, when you get down to four contestants at the end, there's the way it works now is the person who wins the challenge at four goes to the finals or gets the choice to go to the finals. They get to pick one person to go to the finals with them, and then they pick two people to make fire. So they're a head-to-head competition. They've got kindling, they've got things to start a fire, they've got some flint, steel maybe, and whoever builds a fire enough to burn a rope to raise a flag gets to go to the final three. And what Jeff has said, that's the one thing that gets the most comments from people is they love it or they hate it. So this is one of those things that is going to get voted on, or it has been voted on by the fans. And we're not going to find out until we get to that episode about what's happening. Another thing that they voted on is sometimes they've done the final show slash reunion show. They've done it on site in Fiji where they are now, or on site wherever they were, or they've done it later. Everybody's cleaned up and presentable, and they've done it in LA. And he's had the fans vote on where is that show, that final show going to be, on site or in LA. And I think that's going to get a lot of attention as well. So a quick check-in right before the end. What elements of your membership experience, conferences, education, publications, etc., could you have your fans vote on, right? Think about giving them power, giving them voice and say. So I see Amanda's already weighed in with conference topics and tracks. I love that. I mean, obviously, you've got to do that in most cases, probably 3 months or more out, depending on what, how that works for you. I do like this idea of like an unconference element, right? Like have a track where it's not predetermined and it is decided on in the time that the conference is happening. Oh, that's a great one too, Donna Jean, about the location itself. And again, I know these are planned out sometimes 3, 4, 5 years in advance, but if you could get your members to vote on, hey, these are the 3 finalists for our conference in 2031. Where do you want it to be? San Diego, Chicago, Miami, right? Like get them to vote. I love that. Speakers and topics. That's good, Arnie. I love that. Let's see. I know I'm missing lots here as we're going through. Matt also mentioned conference locations, voting on awards programs, conference roundtable topics. That one's a good one as well, Alyssa. I would say some of that. I've been at conferences where there's a theme for a table, right? Sometimes that theme is work related, like say at lunch or breakfast, whenever it might be. You've got a theme for the table, and it could be work related, could be for the IT folks or membership folks, but it also could be. I've been at tables where the theme is travel, right? So now I'm just making connection with people about travel. What means the most of them at a conference? This is fantastic. Thank you, everybody. I wish I had time to sort of dialogue on more of these. Let me just get to the end here. Any questions that have come in? I don't know. All the comments and everything have come in so rapidly. I don't know what else might be out there, Riley, or if you have any questions for me. Otherwise, I can just wrap up or take a couple of minutes to comment on other things.
I'm looking through to see if any questions were asked, but this definitely would be a perfect time for anyone to put any questions in because we
Yeah, I
have
do.
about a minute left.
Yeah, I do see Stacy's comment too about the publications they receive, right? Like some people like the touch and feel of a printed publication or a magazine journal. Sometimes they want it electronically. Sometimes they want, she's talking about different formats as well. Fact sheets, or are they connecting via social media? Understanding better how they're doing that. That's really good. Oh, Heidi weighed in with the type of keynote they would like. Again, I've been to all kinds of keynotes over the past 20 plus years. Some are more motivational, some are more with a big name, right? Somebody from TV or business or the entertainment world. Love all of that. Let's see. See if any questions are coming in now. Yeah, Philip also weighed in with webinars, what people want to hear about that. Again, probably something I know just from talking with Riley. Maybe you're just thinking 3 months out or 6 months out, right? Um, yeah, good thoughts there too, Matt, about the different groups, the membership offerings, that sort of thing. Good. Well, thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope you've had as much fun as I have in presenting it and thinking through it and preparing for it. There's my contact information. Again, I'm Jay Daughtry, Chief Communications Officer and owner of C Cube. There's my contact information with phone number and email. And love to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. For those of you who don't know, I find a lot of time to think about how lessons outside the association world apply inside. I've talked about everything from Major League Baseball to Deion Sanders to the Savannah Bananas. A lot of times it is baseball. But anyway, love to connect with you elsewhere. Thanks so much for participating.